I departed to start my own business in spite of my parents' opposition. They then tried to take my money and filed a lawsuit against me. I was never liked by my parents. They went to the same college and were infatuated in high school. When my mother found out she was pregnant while still in college, their ambitious intentions to tour the world and see other cultures were dashed. Although they thought about ending the pregnancy, their parents forbade it. My mother eventually left college and moved in with her parents because she was unable to cope with the criticism and rumors from other people. I entered the world in this manner. My grandparents loved me, but my mother hated me. My mother never spent time with me, so for a long time I thought she was my sister and my grandparents were my parents. When I tried to get her attention, she would either yell at me or ignore me. I was unaware of my father's existence because he was not present. During this period, my parents kept dating. I know they didn't want a kid, but I didn't understand why they detested me as a kid. Both of my grandparents were friendly to me, spent time with me, and watched after me. By the time of my father's college graduation, I was beginning to walk and speak. He started coming to see me every weekend because he felt bad about not being more active in my life. I assumed he was merely my grandparents' buddy. My grandparents urged him to get to know me, but my mother detested it when he spent time with me and insisted that he ignore me. That's how I found out he was my dad. He moved in with my mother after proposing to her when he acquired a job. My mother was fiercely opposed to my father's desire for me to live with them so they could care for me. As they became older, my grandparents wanted my parents to assume the role. I moved in with my parents when I was 5 years old after they reluctantly took me in. It would be an understatement to say that I detested living with my parents. It seemed as though darkness had taken the place of the light in my existence. My mother threatened to expel me if I did anything wrong and was always reminding me to be thankful that I was still living with them. My dad arrived home late at night after working all day. He insisted that I go to bed since he couldn't handle me that day and that he needed time alone whenever I wanted to spend time with him. My grandparents used to love me, but now I live with parents who hate me. I knew I wasn't wanted, but I didn't know why. Unlike other children, I never received toys or treats from my parents. On occasion, I would arrive at school with unfinished assignments, and my instructor would call my mother to yell at me for being indolent and to accept responsibility. Because I was so afraid of her, I began to meticulously complete my assignments in the hopes that one day she would accept me. However, she never did. My father continued to live in his own universe, unconcerned with my everyday activities or academic achievement. As I became older, I realized the true feelings my parents had for me. I observed that they regarded me differently than other children. I observed other parents embracing, kissing and grinning as they dropped off their kids. None of that ever happened to me. I had the impression that I was living with strangers. I began to wonder if I was actually their biological child as a result. I asked my grandparents every time I went to see them and they confirmed that I was their child. They clarified that my parents simply required more time to grow up. My mother, on the other hand, never sat down to say anything nasty. If I were in high school with you, I would have bullied you mercilessly. It was strange to hear my mother make fun of my hair, glasses and weight. My mother refused to acknowledge that I had a milk allergy, even though my grandparents were well aware of it. She made me drink milk one day, saying that children in her era didn't have allergies and that I was pretending to have one to be cool. I ended up in the hospital as a result of a serious allergic reaction. She was shaken by the situation, particularly when the police arrived to speak with her. She never gave me milk again after that. She sobbed when my dad yelled at her as well. My recuperation was filled with conversation as my grandparents hurried to the hospital to be with me. My parents' attitude toward me changed after this episode. In the evenings, my dad would spend time with me and put me to bed, and my mother began getting me up for school and helping me get ready. They started treating me like a human being. I'm not sure what happened. Seeing my dad invite me to watch football games with him or my mom inquire about school was odd but enjoyable. I started to know my parents better in this way. Since I didn't harbor any animosity toward them, I believe I was born with a great deal of empathy. One of my favorite memories of the three of us is going to the beach on the weekends. My parents began to show me some love and I stopped feeling envious of the children in my class. My mom's mother, my grandma, taught me how to crochet, and when I became 15, I realized I had a knack for it. By this point, my grandfather was dead, and my grandma made a few $100s a year selling her lovely handmade crocheted items at the local craft market. I was captivated by the elaborate designs and vivid hues she employed, and I eagerly took in every aspect of her work. I developed a strong desire for making one-of-a-kind and customized goods as I spent more time developing my crocheting abilities under her tutelage. I made the decision to attempt selling my own crocheted goods after being inspired by my grandmother's attitude of entrepreneurship. At the same neighborhood craft market where she displayed her artwork, I set up a tiny stand with her encouragement. The enormous amount of feedback made me understand that I could make money from my interest. As soon as the word got out about my talent, students, acquaintances, and even locals began placing special orders. Customers were intrigued to the idea of owning something handmade and one of a kind, and each piece I created conveyed a story. My abilities and inventiveness expanded along with my modest business. In order to stretch the limits of conventional crochet, I started experimenting with other yarn textures, colors, and patterns. From basic blankets and scarves to elaborate wearables and home decor pieces, my creations have grown throughout time. My resolve to further hone my skill was strengthened by the encouraging comments and recurring business. My grandma advised me to open a savings account in order to better manage my money when I began to make a sizable income. She suggested that I put my salary aside for college. My parents were shocked to learn how much I had been making. And their eyes widened when I told them. They considered crocheting to be a pointless pastime till that point. They really objected when they saw that I was earning a substantial sum of money for my age. My mother forbade me from going to my grandmother's house, and my father threatened to burn all of my crocheted items, claiming he wasn't working hard to pay for my school so I could waste time on stupid things. When I told them that the money I had earned was with my grandma, they called her and began to shout at me. Despite my parents' insistence that they should have every penny, my grandma refused to give them anything when she discovered they were attempting to steal my money. This helped me realize that my parents were still as self-centered and self-serving as ever, despite the passage of time. I was determined not to lose the money that might be used to pay for my college education, and I couldn't give up my love of crocheting. My parents' actions made me question whether they would even pay for my college education, so I decided to take matters into my own hands. I made a plan to spend every weekend working on my designs at my grandmother's house. My best buddy, who was aware of the situation and encouraged me, was the one I lied to when I told my parents that I was staying at their house. We collaborated to complete the pouring orders from customers at my grandmother's residence. My grandmother was essential to the development of my company. In order to reach a wider audience, I also embraced online channels like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Social media has become an effective tool for interacting with other artists and exhibiting my work. The digital world gave me countless opportunities to share my enthusiasm with people throughout the world. My little stand at the neighborhood craft show grew into a successful internet business over time. As a co-owner, my grandmother assisted me in opening a bank account with her. I had entire faith in her, and because of her, I was able to put all of my money aside for college. When my own parents merely wanted to keep my money for themselves, she had faith in me. My mother once looked through my phone without my knowledge and found out that I had an internet company. We got into a heated argument once she discovered that I was still running it behind their backs. My grandmother and I were both yelled at by my parents. They claimed to have raised and taken care of me all my life, and demanded that I take all of the money I had made and give it to them. I almost cried as I tried to clarify that I wasn't hurting anyone and that the money was for my college. My father shouted that he could no longer trust me since I had cheated on them. Standing behind me, my mother insisted that I remove my Instagram page. Instead, I shrewdly canceled my account, intending to restart it after I was no longer under parental control. Then, starting at 9 a.m., they imposed stringent phone limitations. Until 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. until 8 in the morning. Additionally, they began following my whereabouts and looking through my online history, sending me alerts if I looked up anything they thought was inappropriate. Even harmless things like buying underwear. My parents would phone me and my friends several times if I didn't return home right away after going out with them, something I was only permitted to do twice a week. They forbade me from crocheting with my grandmother, although occasionally I was permitted to spend a few hours with her after school. They threatened to disconnect my phone and internet if I didn't comply. Even though I was just 16 and had no means of escape, there were plenty of days when I just wanted to flee. My parents agreed to let me work part-time at a nearby cafe in exchange for a quarter of my profits. Without protest, I gave them their weekly allotment and sent my grandmother the remaining 75% to be deposited into my bank account. My parents persisted in making my life miserable by frequently entering my room at strange hours to check on me, reading through my emails and chats, and keeping tabs on where I was. I was grounded or made to give them a larger portion of my wages if I disobeyed their regulations. Knowing that getting into a reputable college was my ticket to leaving this existence behind, I concentrated on doing well in school in spite of everything. I put in a lot of work. I packed everything I had purchased for myself the night before my 17th birthday, leaving behind things my parents had given me, like my phone. To be sure they couldn't follow me or discover any details about my plans, I cleared my phone. I was finally able to move in with my grandmother when she came to take me up early in the morning. When my parents saw me go, they became irate and began fighting with my grandmother, threatening to call the police. Since I was now 17 and could make my own decisions, I told them to go ahead. They threatened to tell everyone that I was an unappreciative daughter in an attempt to blackmail me, but I didn't care. Additionally, they threatened to stop providing any financial aid for college, but I grinned since I knew I had saved enough money to qualify for a scholarship. I experienced a mixture of anxiety, relief, and resolve as I left the house. I had no idea that my path would soon take a surprising detour. It was refreshing to spend the first few weeks at my grandmother's house. Finally, the severe limitations were removed, and I was free to breathe without continual observation. I started by purchasing a new phone and obtaining a new number. After that, my grandmother and I went to the bank to change my minor account to an individual one. Being able to use my own card and account without anyone's consent made me very happy. I started crocheting again, therefore I revived my Instagram account. My grandmother was really encouraging and even offered me a tiny room in her home where I could erect a temporary studio. A week after I moved out, I received word from neighbors and family that my parents had celebrated their newfound freedom with a party. Being able to begin their new family life, without the burden of my presence, made them very pleased. They shared a ton of photos of themselves laughing and drinking all night long, and they invited their pals who didn't have kids. At first the news was painful. Just 1 week after I left, my parents were celebrating my disappearance, which served as a clear reminder of how unwelcome I had been in their lives. When they learned about the event, my dad's parents were equally taken aback. They contacted right away to find out what had happened after they had my new number from one of my cousins. I was honest with them about my connection with my parents and the reasons behind my departure. When they heard about the abuse, they were appalled and questioned why I hadn't contacted them for assistance. I described how my grandparents and a select group of pals were the only people I could communicate with due to parental restrictions. At this point, my dad's parents disclosed that my parents had never desired me at all. After I moved in with them, they believed my parents had changed, but they were mistaken. They pleaded with me to pardon them for their lack of support. In order to defend me, they also talked to my grandmother, who told them about the numerous arguments she had with my parents. Following this, my dad's parents decided to tell everyone in the family about what my parents had done. As word got out among family members and acquaintances, individuals began contacting one another to offer their support. I was taken aback by their empathy for my situation. Some even offered financial assistance, but I turned them down and asked them to promote my crocheting business instead. This is how my company started to expand. I received full scholarship acceptance to my ideal college around this time. Finally, a positive change in my life was on the horizon. My grandma lived close to the college, so I could go see her every weekend to crochet or spend time with her. My dad's parents chose to give me their old vehicle as a gift. I was able to see my grandmother more easily because it only required minor repairs. A friend of mine who was employed at a local newspaper contacted me to inquire about writing a piece about me. Since there weren't many young company owners in our community, she believed that my narrative might encourage other young people to pursue their own goals. I gave it some thought and accepted the interview. I hoped that if a child out there was trapped in a toxic atmosphere like I had been, they might read my tale and be inspired, but I didn't think it was a huge thing because I still had a lot of work to do on my business. It seemed odd to see my journey highlighted in the paper when the piece was published. Even though it was only a minor accomplishment, I felt proud of the effort I had put into my business in spite of all the challenges for the first time in a very long time. Other family members and friends began to contact me to congratulate me on my accomplishment, and my grandmother was quite proud of me. For me, this was a novel sensation. My parents never encouraged or acknowledged my diligence when I was growing up. My parents called my grandmother and yelled at her after reading the account. They demanded that I publicly give them credit for my business and accused me of betraying them by going behind their back. They had begun to receive criticism from relatives for their domineering actions. Additionally, they threatened to sue me and demanded that I give them a portion of my revenues. I started the business under my grandmother's roof, she told them forcefully, and she challenged them to try to take me to court, which they would undoubtedly lose. I wanted to yell at my parents because I was so upset over their actions, but I knew I couldn't. Instead, I invited my close friends and family to a little celebration that I had planned. Before I left for college, it was an opportunity to celebrate my business and hard work with people who truly loved me, a time I thought I earned. We had an amazing time. Naturally, my folks heard about it and managed to obtain my new phone number. They began emailing me, saying they wished they had never had me and labeling me an ungrateful daughter. My dad even sent me a lengthy text saying that I was squandering money celebrating with other people while he had spent his entire life supporting me. When my parents celebrated after I moved out, was it inappropriate of me to have a party to celebrate with my loved ones? Update 1. I had no idea my tale would become viral when I uploaded it to Reddit. I noticed that my narrative was making the rounds on TikTok in a matter of days. I'm afraid my parents might learn about this. Please pray they don't for me. Many of you have recommended that I permanently block my parents, and I intend to do just that. To let them know how their actions have impacted me, I would like to write them one last email. Despite what some of you have said, I am not a doormat. Since I'm still a young person and my parents are really toxic, it's challenging to cut them off entirely. No one prepares you for what to do when you have toxic parents and need to break off relationships with them, despite society's insistence that parents always want the best for us. I know some of you think I'm to fault for allowing my parents to take advantage of me, but keep in mind that I'm still a young person learning how to advocate for myself. Update 2. We appreciate everyone who got in touch with encouraging words and shared similar experiences. As I previously stated, with my grandmother's assistance, I composed an email to my parents. The email's contents are as follows. Dear parents, I've given our relationship a lot of thought, considering its past, present, and possible future. I regretfully recognize that, in order to further my personal development and well-being, I must cut off any contact with you too. I longed for your love during my early years and tried my hardest to live up to your standards, but I was never good enough. I have made several attempts over the years to gain acceptance in your life and to understand why you seem to despise me, but I have never been accepted. From my first recollections, when Mom made me drink milk in spite of my allergies, to feeling alienated in my own house, your behavior influenced how poisonous our family is. Nevertheless, I continued to aspire for a connection that never materialized. With Grandma's help, I discovered a sense of purpose and comfort in crocheting, which I believed could help us connect. But as I developed my company, your attempts to manipulate and discredit me have just strengthened my resolve to leave this poisonous atmosphere. Your attempts to control my festivities, threaten legal action, and insist on taking a piece of my hard-earned money just serve to further expose how toxic you are to me. I want you to know that this choice is not meant to be hurtful or retaliatory. It is a manifestation of self-preservation, a start toward creating a life devoid of poison and full of the affection and assistance that each and every child is entitled to. I don't mean any disrespect to any of you, but I must put my mental and emotional health first. I appreciate you encouraging me to be self-sufficient and undervaluing my abilities. I hope you both find happiness without me and wish you luck in your future pursuits. I ask that you honor my choice to stop communicating. Let's have a friendly separation. I'll admit that while I was composing this email to my parents, I started crying. It's really difficult to cut off your parents, even though I know I should be tough and keep in mind all the horrible things they have done to me. We are conditioned to adore them as children, and it might be challenging to overcome that mentality. I blacklisted them everywhere after I sent the email. I'm going to college in a few days and I'm a little anxious about it. My dad's parents and my grandmother will assist me in relocating to my new dorm. Meeting new people and forming friendships excites me. To everyone inquiring, even if I'm a college student, I won't give up on my successful crocheting business. My passion is creating original designs. I'll put in a lot of effort to balance it with my studies. As of right now, this is the only update I have. Update 3. My previous update was 6 months ago. Whoa. I'm amazed at how much time has gone by and how my life has changed. Above all, I am doing really well in college. Even though the classes are difficult, I'm working hard to keep my GPA high. Even though my crocheting business is doing well, I am aware that a college degree will serve as a safety net. In college, I've also made some amazing friends, and I even receive more crochet orders as a result of them. I've been able to meet new individuals and discover new vistas thanks to college. Compared to the loneliness I experienced at home, this is a welcome change. I even currently date a man named Kyle. We have only been dating for 2 months and we are still getting to know one another. We'll see how things work out because he's a nice man. I make it a point to go see my grandmother every weekend. We are still working from her temporary workspace to complete our crochet orders. The company is flourishing, and our clients' enthusiastic feedback is tremendous. Following my passion has given me a sense of fulfillment and purpose in addition to financial stability. It's been a quiet 6 months since my sincere email to my folks. They haven't tried to get in touch with me. According to my grandparents, my parents sold everything and left the nation in search of a new beginning since they felt that everyone was criticizing them. I have no idea where they are, and to be honest, I don't give a damn. It says volumes that they decided to go without making an effort to make amends or even offering an apology. Wherever they have gone, I sincerely hope they find happiness and are able to follow their lifelong dreams. It's time for me to concentrate on my personal path and on creating the life I've always desired. I would like to thank everyone who has been following my story and providing supportive comments. I am so grateful for your support. If all of this has taught me anything, it's how important it is to surround yourself with positive, self-affirming people. I am where I am now because of my grandmother and others who had faith in me. Most likely, this will be my final update. Thanks to everybody. I discover father-in-law is a pedophile, decide to divorce after wife defends him and shuns sister who spoke out. Original post, my wife Jessica, 32F, and I, 30M, have been married for 2 years and are trying for a baby. Jessica has an older sister, Mary, that she isn't close to. She told me that they had a huge falling out over some family drama and just don't speak anymore. I asked a few times about the entire situation, but she would say she doesn't like talking about it and doesn't think it's important. It was Jessica's brother's birthday yesterday and we were all over at his house to celebrate. Mary made an appearance and there was a lot of drama. Long story short, she called Jessica and her brothers out for still associating with their dad when they know that he is a child molester. No one was paying her any mind and I was really confused on what the hell was going on. When Mary left and Jessica and I went home, I asked Jessica what the hell happened. She said that when they were kids, Mary used to claim that their dad used to molest her. I asked if it's true and Jessica was stuttering a lot. She said she knows her dad used to do bad things but that Mary cut them all off when she turned 18 and moved out. I asked if she's admitting that she knows her dad was a child molester and did things to his own daughter. She said he doesn't do it anymore and he was just in a really bad place in his life, and he apologized to Mary so there's nothing else anyone can do for Mary. I was honestly appalled. I also feel so terrible for Mary. Jessica made it seem like Mary did something wrong and deserved to be basically exiled from the family. I could have never imagined that this is what happened. I asked if she expects me to now be willing to have that man around our future children and she started shouting at me, saying I'm judging him off something that happened 2 decades ago and whether I like it or not, he is going to be our child's grandpa and he will be in their lives. I said if she insists on it, I think we need to hold off on having kids and have serious conversations about it. She's extremely angry at me but I don't know how I could better react to be honest. This feels like a huge deal that she is minimizing. Eta, relevant comments. Commenter, NTA and run? Please talk to someone from RAIN. They are an organization for victims of sexual assault. This is not something minor like occasionally being crabby with your kids on the mornings you have a migraine. This is a crime. I know a victim of child sexual abuse and many years later and thousands of dollars in therapy, this woman is still hurting. You need to get out now. OP, I wish I could accurately describe how Mary looked and sounded when she was going off on her siblings that day. It actually sent shivers down my spine. She looked so angry but so defeated at the same time. All while they were all looking at her like she was crazy. I still can't wrap my head around it. I want to reach out to her and check if she's alright but I don't know how appropriate that will be. Commenter, NTA, someone who has glossed over child molestation. Would she want to leave a future child of yours with grandpa for the night? That's chilling. And once you have kids, even if you divorced her for this later, you couldn't get full custody over this, if grandpa never went to prison for it and isn't a convicted sex offender. It's awful all the way around. I can't believe you've been married 2 years before you even heard this story. OP, that's exactly what I was thinking. He never went to prison. Never been reported to the police at all and there's no proof of what he did so I would have no case and no power to keep him away from our children. I don't want to feel helpless about what happens to my children. I don't want to fail them like that. I don't think I should even have them with her at any point now that this has all come to light. Commenter, and I bet she did everything she could to hide this from him their whole relationship. OOP, I think this is a huge part of why I'm so angry at her. She had so many opportunities to tell me. There are instances where she had to have actively gone out of her way to keep this entire thing from me. And if Mary hadn't shown up to their brother's birthday party, I would have still been in the dark. Top comment, pedophiles rarely retire. Update. It's been nearly a year since my initial post so I thought I would give an update. A few days after my original post, I sat Jessica down and told her how I was feeling. I told her I'm not okay with what she and her family had done to Mary. They knew what their dad had done to her but still chose to take his side and make Mary look crazy. I told her I'm also not okay with brushing her father's crimes under the rug. She was quiet and didn't say anything. She didn't try to defend herself or her family. She was just staring at me in a very chilling way. Almost like she was indifferent to whatever I had to say and just wanted it to be over. I told her I needed time to myself and I would leave and think about what I wanted to do. Suddenly she was paying attention. She seemed shocked and panicked. She started begging me not to leave, saying I'll get over it in a few days when we get back to how we usually are and things settle down. She said all families have skeletons in their closet and that this can't define our marriage. I said no and I left the house for a few days. I ignored all her calls and those of her family. I reached out to Mary on Facebook. I wrote her a lengthy message about how I had no idea all she had been through and that I'm so sorry for how her family treated her. I told her to reach out to me if she ever needs anything. She got back to me and asked if we could meet for coffee. We met up the day after. At first it was small talk, then she asked if I would be okay if she told me her version of events. I said of course I would, and she spoke to me about it. Everything her dad did and how her family treated her after she told them. I felt physically sick. She even told me stories about how Jessica told her friends that Mary has a mental condition that causes hallucinations, and that just in case Mary starts rumors about their family, that's why. A lot of people still believe Mary has a mental condition because of Jessica. I knew after that talk that I had to end things with Jessica. I went over to our house and told her I want a divorce. I told her I cannot stand the thought of being her husband and a part of their disgusting family. All she did was cry and ask all this for her. I knew then that she hadn't changed. She was still the same person that did all of those things to Mary, and she was still doing them. We're still not officially divorced, but we haven't been together since, and we are going through the process. It's just taking longer than I thought to get it finalized. Mary and I became friends. I invited her to a birthday dinner my family was hosting for me, and she hit it off with my cousin. He's crazy about her, and she seems really happy with him too. He keeps asking me if it would be too early to propose, and I have to tell him to not scare her away, lol. But they have a really wholesome relationship and I'm really happy for them. As for me, I'm just surviving. Divorces are tough, but I know I made the right choice. Thank you to everyone that responded and gave me advice. I really appreciate it.